why do we see an unprecedented amount of death, destruction, and war crimes? There's four reasons. One comes down to Hamas themselves. They are heavily embedded within and underneath civilian infrastructure in Gaza. It makes it very hard for the IDF to engage in without civilians being harmed. They also sometimes walk around in civilian uniforms, right? So Israel does not know who's Hamas and who's not, and this results in them not taking risks and just targeting military-age men that might be Hamas. One of them was a friend of mine who's been on the show on many occasions, Muhammad Sharif. For those who didn't know, he was killed in an airstrike a month and a half ago. So that's one. The conditions are very tough. Second is this is a conflict that has a deep level of ethnic hate between both sides. Right, Russians and Ukrainians don't hate each other nearly as much as Israelis and Palestinians. Americans and Iraqis, not same story. Syrian civil war, same story. When you have deep levels of ethnic hate, you're going to see more war crimes. You're going to see more recklessness. The other, as we mentioned, is the cost of holding soldiers accountable, right? There's a cost if you try a soldier for their crimes. So there's a disincentive in doing so. And fourth is the fact that Israel is blindly supported for the most part by the US and gets a blank check. When you know you're not going to be held accountable for your actions, and when you don't need to pay for your weapons, you're going to act much more recklessly. People and countries respond to incentives. Israel is not unique in their nature. They're unique in how they're acting because of these external incentives. So it's certainly multifaceted and complex, but for those pretending that this is just like any other war, I don't even want to say pretending. I don't want to assume that there's intentional, because you have people like John Spencer, who's a NATO, not NATO. He's a warfare study in West Point. He keeps coming out saying Israel's being held to the highest standard possible. So I do genuinely believe that many people actually believe that Israel is doing everything in their power, that this has the best combatant to civilian ratio in history, that the war crimes are at a minimal. People genuinely believe this, but when you actually look at the facts, when you actually see what's happening, it's quite the opposite. We're seeing an unprecedented level of war crimes and a level of death and destruction, both to civilians and civilian infrastructure, right? I didn't even get into the numbers of the civilian infrastructure that's been destroyed. I am going to make a video on this topic, a pre-recorded video where I really go into depth about everything being spoken about, but this is unprecedented. And not only, even if you don't care about Palestinians, which you should, we should care about all humans, but let's say you only care about Israel, this should concern you regardless. This is going to be one of the darkest stains in Israel's history. This is getting more and more people to question our legitimacy as a sovereign nation, and we're slowly being isolated internationally, and we are falling into an abyss of darkness and extremism. So whether you're a humanist and care about all people, obviously this will be concerning you, but even if you only care about Israel, this should still be concerning. And not to mention the fact that we've lost, what is the number, 400 soldiers now. The hostages in Gaza are being killed. The economy is tanking. We still have 60,000 citizens who aren't in their homes in the north. We don't have a way to deal with multiple fronts at once. And Hamas is nowhere near being defeated, right? So as much as we're taking it to Hamas, in many ways, we're actually losing. And many of Israel's top minds who contribute the most to the Israeli economy are leaving. So we're seeing the limitations of our strength. We're seeing really the fragility of the Jewish state. And anybody who cares about Israel should be concerned about it.